So immediately after seeing Transformers Rise of the Beast, I remembered the first time watching the trailer, and I have to admit, when I first saw it, I actually had a negative reaction to it, simply because of this one scene. Now, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, but for those of you who don't, allow me to explain. You see, before I saw the trailer, back when we only had the announcement, I had conceived in my head that we were getting something that not just myself, but a lot of people had asked for. A Beast Wars live action, or just a Transformers movie in general, with no humans. And based off initial conversation, this was supposed to be it. The long misdirected Transformers movies of old were done. We would finally be getting a Transformers movie with only Transformers in it. And why wouldn't I think that? The popular 90s cartoon and a lot of the comics had no humans at all. And we were also coming off the Netflix show, which also had no humans in it. So of course, in my head, I thought that studios were finally realizing that we don't need humans in Transformers, that in reality, they just get in the way. And I remember the rumors after Bumblebee came out that Paramount would be taking a break from Transformers to plan what would be a revamp of the IP with increased influence from Hasbro, which was good news but meant nothing to a lot of people, including myself, other than the fact that it meant that the Transformers designs would be a little bit better. But it was the two projects that we got after those rumors that would start my true descent into believing that we were done with humans, at least for a long while, with the Transformers War for Cybertron trilogy on Netflix and the Transformers Beast Wars comic. So by that point, I really thought we were going to get a humanless Transformers movie, and I quickly learned that my thoughts ended up being not even remotely correct. So when the Rise of the Beast trailer dropped, it ended up being a fact that not only did they have humans in the movie, they seemed to be doing the whole kid and their pet robot storyline all over again, this time with Noah and Mirage, who are the two central characters. So when seeing the movie, I went in with low expectations, thinking that the humans would take away from a story that shouldn't really be about humans in the first place, and for some of it, that's actually the case. Now I'll give the character of Noah Diaz credit, he's actually really fun and ironically actually has a reason to work with the Autobots. So at the very least, you could tell where they were trying to do some things differently than the Shia LaBeouf and Mark Wahlberg days. So I sat there watching the movie thinking this is just another Transformers flick, and honestly, that was fine. And then something happens at the end that makes me question not only the movie, but the entire franchise in general. And that's G.I. Joe. Yeah, that G.I. Joe. You see, I didn't realize at first that the suit Noah ended up wearing was quite similar to the Accelerator suit from G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. In fact, I didn't even remotely think about it until Noah received the card from Agent Burke that had G.I. Joe written on it. And then it all fell into place. And it's interesting for a couple of reasons. One thing that we know for sure is that for everything happening within the Transformers movies, there's always been a large military presence who usually work with the Autobots, which makes a lot of sense considering that's exactly what would happen if giant robots came to Earth causing chaos. There wouldn't be some suburban neighborhood kid or a rural inventor fighting in the battles. Also, when we consider the G.I. Joe movies, the things happening within them are so ridiculous that adding Transformers to the equation really wouldn't change a thing. Then you look at the real-life brands. Both are owned by Hasbro and both are film franchises distributed by Paramount. But one needs the other's help to remain relevant, and thus the Transformers G.I. Joe crossover is born. And funny enough, nothing about it feels out of place. I mean, come on. People have been joking about Fast and Furious adding Transformers for years, so this isn't exactly too far off. But it also does a great thing for future Transformers movies. It gives humans within those films a reason to be there, and more so for Hasbro and Paramount, it makes for a much easier marketing effort by using the rising tide strategy. I mean, think about it. The G.I. Joe movies have struggled since the first one, with Snake Eyes being their most recent flop both critically and financially. And while the previous G.I. Joe Retaliation movie made some money, it had terrible reviews, even more than Snake Eyes, and Retaliation had The Rock in it during his heyday where all of his movies were making big money and were received well. To be frank, the series was dying. It was a toy and cartoon brand that was truly a product of its time and never really did well crossing into the film space. So to even hear rumors about G.I. Joe getting a reboot were surprising to say the least, although I don't think anyone expected this. But now that it's come out, it's not hard to realize that this was really the only play that they had. Transformers movies are moneymakers, with 2 of them hitting the $1 billion mark, and adding G.I. Joe is something that would be fresh for the Transformers series while lifting the profile of the G.I. Joe brand, which they badly need. And whether the crossover movie ends up being good, bad, or something in between, this whole thing caused enough genuine intrigue and curiosity that I'm pretty sure Paramount's going to end up feeling like they made the right decision in the end.